It ranges from 0.64 to 2 ETH per month that is airdropped to you for forever, right? By the way, if you hold that red light district.
What's up, guys? Hope you're all well. Yeah, in this video, I have recorded an AMA with me and one of our analysts and also project advisor. His name is Tyler. He's a professional analyst for projects like Satoshi Runners and Dreamland Genesis. He really knows what he's talking about. He's very successful. So just the thing is, he started last year with NFTs with 4 ETH. Right now, he is up to 70 ETH, right? So he make really good profits on also some blue chip projects like Moonbird. I think so because his profile pic is a moonbird, so I assume he own one. No, don't ask him, but I think so. Right, and also other different very nice projects which he owns, and he know how to find really legit projects, how to make DJ plays, and my goal is in my Discord group, and you can join my Discord group, of course. A link in the description. My goal is is my Discord group to educate you guys to get some specialists in to my Discord channel and create this kind of mastermind call. So I give you guys value. Why? Because I plan also my own NFT project. And yeah, my project will be not one of this kind of projects, where I just launch some shit and try to sell it, make good, quick buck. So my goal is really to give you guys real, real life value. So how you can trade crypto, how you can trade NFTs, how you can find NFTs where you will not losing money but making money. It's not an easy game, but it's very excited, and I want to give you as much as possible value. And of course, I have recorded this AMA with Tyler, and I think it will give you a lot of value. It's around 1 hour, so you can watch in, and a lot of valuable information for beginners and also for people who are a little bit more experienced. And I will keep going with this AMAs. Yeah, I will keep going with this with different specialists, also with myself. Of course, I will record it and put it on YouTube. You always free to join. Free to join. It's very early on, of course, right? But before I start, of course, need to tell this is not financial advice, just for education purpose. And if you like my content, if you like all the stuff, what I giving to you, you support me a lot if you just drop the like button, subscribe to my channel. So YouTube algorithm will a little bit, make things what makes me happy. Yeah. So enjoy. Peace. Okay. Hey guys, and welcome to this AMA, or let's say a group coaching call with Tyler, or mastermind with Tyler, name it like you want. Yeah. So first of all, thanks all to joining this AMA. As I told you, I got now a professional analyst in our group, and the goal is, of course, to give you as much value as possible with specialists. And Tyler is the first specialist. He is advisor for not only advisor, pro analyst for Satoshi Runners. He has an Alpha Call channel, and head analyst for Dreamland Genesis. So 2 really big projects, and as he mentioned before, he started this last year and make already good profit, but he will introduce himself, I think, and I think we can learn a lot from him in this call. And after he's coaching call, I will also explain a little bit more about our project and what I plan in future, and how you all can benefit from it, because you're all early on. So Tyler, you have the word now.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. So I guess for the people that are new here, perhaps you weren't here the first session. Let me just give a quick introduction about myself again, just so you know who's talking. So I'm Tyler, otherwise known as Tyler Rohr, and as he said, right, like I'm an analyst in a few places and an advisor to some others as well. And I started my journey relatively recently, here in August or September, around that range. But since then, I have made a sizable, pretty good chunk of ETH. But anyways, my real life experience, at least before I quit my job to do Web3 full time, was feel free to tag me in general or wherever and ask your questions if you're shy, right? Like you can also unmute and ask me a question live if you want to. Feel free to do that. So first of all, uh, assuming that you guys are relatively new, right, or maybe the liquidity that you have is a little bit small. The first and most important thing for me is kind of to identify what type of trader you are, and what position are you in, right? So it matters a lot. And one of the common things that I like to tell people to ask themselves or to reflect on is how much liquidity are you playing with, or are you willing to play with, right? So if you are someone with a small bankroll, small is relative, but for me, I would say if you're playing below 1 ETH, that's relatively small. And so the strategy and how you play things will be very different from someone who says has at least 5 to 10 ETH, right, or more, right? If you're a bigger whale or dolphin or whatever you're gonna call it, then you will have more money to play with, and because of that, the risk that you can take is different, right? Very different. So you need to ask yourself that, right? So realistically, how much am I starting on my journey, right? Do I have only, say 0.5, right? Or do I have 10 ETH? Or am I just trying to play around with 1 or 2 ETH and I can easily transfer myself another 10 ETH if I wanted to, right? So you should ask yourself these questions first, before you decide, what strategy or what type of investor you want to be. And another thing that's important to note is the amount of time that you have. Not everyone has time to be on Discord or Twitter 24/7 or to track charts, right? Like IC tools and whatnot, very frequently, right? It's not realistic for some people. So you need to be honest with yourself and kind of reflect, okay, so can I afford to do this? And then your strategy changes accordingly. So let's start off with someone with perhaps a smaller bankroll, right? Let's say below 1 ETH. When you have below 1 ETH to play with and you can't easily get more liquidity, you you have to basically play it safer, right? You have to take less risk. It might sound counterintuitive because a lot of the times you see on Twitter or Discord, right, there are a lot of degens, and everyone likes to say they're a degen or whatnot, and you just ape into whatever, right, like, and do that. But it's actually not the smartest thing to do if you're someone with a small bankroll, because by nature, a degen project is highly risky, right? Even though the cost is relatively low, the payoff is also, the expected return on average is negative, essentially, right? There's one project out of maybe 20 that might actually do very well, but a lot of times that's not the case. So it is kind of like a numbers game if you're going to do degen projects, right? Assuming you don't know how to read the charts, though. Okay, that's an asterisk there. Um, so for degen projects, that's something that I would probably stay away from unless you're very comfortable, using technical analysis and trading the charts. Otherwise, I would say if you're a newer person, probably it's not such a good idea because you don't know how to identify whether this is a good opportunity or not. And if you're not tuned into the space 24/7, right? You by the time you realize or learn about that certain project, it's usually too late, right? If you see it trending on OpenSea or even IC tools, you might actually be buying the top. And if you're new, you don't know what you're doing. That happens quite frequently, and then it wipes you out, right? So it's not, to me at least, it's not advised for a newer person that might not know what they're doing to degen into projects, right? You see all those free mints and whatnot. I don't particularly recommend it. You can try, but I don't recommend it. Because I think some of the costs that you need to keep in mind are the cost of gas, right? Cost of gas, it varies. If there's a lot of FOMO going on, gas usually is more expensive, right? And then you also have to account for the royalties when you're gonna sell that, that so-called free NFT, right? For degen projects, it's usually a little bit higher. It's 7.5% to 10% typically. And then you also need to pay to list that NFT. So it's actually not so free after all, right? Usually you will have to sell that NFT for around 0.03, 0.04 to break even, right? So you need it to actually go higher than that for you to make any sort of money, right? So there's also the cost of risk, right? It's something that people don't necessarily just factor in, by default, but you should put a price tag on it, right? Because there's an opportunity cost of time here. And also the risk of just it going to zero, right? So there's a price tag associated with that. So these are all things that you need to kind of think about, right, when you see a degen project being called. So in this server, I do share degen opportunities because there are plenty of people that are interested, and you definitely can make money. Basically trading degen projects, but none of them should be holds, by the way. For those that are a little bit newer, if it's called a degen project, it's 99.999% you shouldn't be holding it. So Goblin Town is an exception, right? That's one is yeah, that's a complete exception, but it's not the norm. So just keep that in mind. Um, and why do I still share degen projects, even though it's a lot more risky and a lot of the times it's like that? Is because there is money to be made, right? If you know what you're doing, there is money to be made, and you one out of maybe like 20 or 30 might actually do well and could actually be tradable, right? But most of the times I don't mint the degens mints that I call because most of them will amount to nothing and do amount to nothing. But then there are the odd ones that actually become something. So a couple days ago, for example, I called something. I listed one of the degen plays called Troll Town, and that's what I had in mind, right? So that's a good example of a degen play that could have been traded or could have been very successful, right? Right now, it's trading at I think zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.4 ETH, and it was a free mint, right? So that's one example of what I mean by most degen projects are flops, but then there's that one or two that can actually do well, and you can make a lot of money if you decided to go into it. So me sharing all these degen plays, the benefit of it is basically you have it on your radar early, and you can decide whether or not you want to mint or buy in early, right? And that's a problem that a lot of newer people have, right? Because you don't know about these projects, you don't discover them early enough. You become exit liquidity if you buy in when it starts trending on OpenSea or IC tools, right? So when you know in advance, way in advance, like when I tell you, you can keep track of it from the very beginning or as soon as you learn about it, right? So then you can make the decision: do I want to buy in? Is this a scam? Is this flippable, tradable? So this is more for degen plays, but in my opinion, I wouldn't advise a newer person to do degen plays. But technically, if you have a smaller bankroll, it could be played if you're a little bit more experienced doing technical analysis or whatnot. But what I always suggest for someone that doesn't have too much ETH to play with, and you're here to make money, you want to grow your bankroll. The safest way by far, even now, is basically grinding for whitelist, right? Now the meta has shifted a lot, right? There's a very bad reputation behind grinding whitelist, but it's still a thing, right? And it is one of the lowest cost way for you to secure profits, right? To ensure that this play is like you're not going to lose money, because the benefit of whitelisting is you earn the privilege to mint. It's kind of like an option, right? You have the right to mint, but you don't have to. So the benefit of this is you can basically track how it does before you pull the trigger. So this is very valuable for someone with not too much ETH to play with. Um, I think a rookie mistake I see is when people get whitelist for a certain project and then they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you don't really need to know what to do ahead of time, right? Because like the idea here is to flip it, and you know whether it's flippable or not. There's no gambling here, right? If it is not flippable, and what I mean by that is on secondary, whether it's on OpenSea or X2Y2 or whatever like that, if that is below mint price and there's no volume, then don't mint, right? It's very obvious. Then don't mint, right? But if floor is, let's say, 1.5 to 2x or more of mint price and there's steady volume. Now, steady volume, that's quite subjective. You know, for me personally, I'd be like, if there's around five sales or more per minute, then I'll be like, okay, that's pretty good volume. There seems to be interest. There's a good chance that floor price can increase, right? And how floor price increases is basically when sales are the ratio between sales to listings is higher, right? So more people are buying than people are listing. That's when floor price goes up. And for that to happen, the project must have demand, right? So that's why I say for whitelist, it's very, very easy to play, right? It's super, super easy, right? If you can make money, mint. If you cannot make money, move on, right? And there are the odd times where you decide not to mint, it's not doing well, but then it goes on to do well. Then that's just part of the game, right? Like you can't predict that, and you still make the right decision at the time, so don't regret it. So this is for whitelist trading. Um, and I think one of the hard parts about this is identifying what project to actually grind for and try and get whitelist. This is another big problem I see, right, for newer people, because you don't know how to identify whether something, will probably do well, right? Even for the top projects out there, who knows, right? There is a chance that they flop, but again, that is part of the game. Um, so how do you identify whether something is worth grinding for? It's a little bit more of a mixture of experience, you know, kind of knowing the space and how hyped it is, right? But organic hype. This is for flipping specifically, not for long-term holds, right? Hype is not very important for longer-term holds, but I would say for flipping, it is. It is for whitelist flipping, it's quite important. Um, so I think it's good for you to have access to groups like this where you can actually discuss with other people or to hear other people's sentiments about certain projects or even ask people like myself or Ruslan whether a certain project might be worth grinding for or might be a good play, right? So it's quite. I think for me, it's quite obvious whether a project will be a good flip or not, because I've done this 24/7 for a while now, so I'm quite good at identifying whether something will probably do well or not. Um, but for a newer person, it might be
Ну,
different.
непонятно, говорят, что
So
армянины
yeah, so
находятся
that's
в
the
Министерстве.
that's for people of smaller
Сейчас,
bank.
вот пока я-то sначала видела, вот,
And the strategy of how to
например,
flip it, right? Let's say you do determine that something is flippable. What a very common strategy in the space, that's good, by the way, is the 3 mint strategy. But nowadays, I think whitelist mints the amount that people are letting you mint is getting lower and lower. So this might not apply to all projects. So you can adjust it accordingly and according to your own risk tolerance. But let's say you get to mint 3. The common strategy is to sell 1 to break even your costs, right? So this way you're holding the rest kind of for free. So that's the first thing that people usually do, and then the second one you will sell at, let's say, 2x, 2 or 3x, right? And then you secure profit that way. And then the third one you can hold as your moonshot, right? Sometimes things can pop off that you didn't think will, but you want the lottery ticket basically, right? In hopes that it would actually moon. So Goblin Town is a good example of that, right? In most cases, you should have sold Goblin Town at like 0.2, right? But who would have known that it would pop up this hard, right? So if you had that moonshot, then you will be able to sell one at like 590 or whatever like that. So that's the idea behind this strategy. Now, if the amount that you can mint is lower than that, then you have to adjust it accordingly, right? As always, usually I would still at least break even, right? If you break even and cover all of your costs, then the second one you can just hold, right? You can hold, you can secure profit at 2x, or you can be greedy and hope that it's a moonshot, right? Because it's free. You're holding it for free. There's no risk for you. Then that's what you should do, right? So this is for people with a little bit of a smaller bankroll. So I guess in line with this, right? So after shorter term holds, like whitelist flipping, then there's medium and longer term holds. I personally don't recommend, if you're someone with a small bankroll, to hold stuff long term. There's a caveat to that, where if this is a tool, then yes, you can do it, right? Or if this is an alpha group or whatever like that, and you get constant utility or information, then yes, you can hold. However, in other cases, where if let's say this is a gaming project that's going to have a game in 6 months to 1 year, if you're someone with a small bankroll, I don't recommend that you basically invest into that project and hold, because you're unlikely to be able to hold it through bear markets or through dips, right? Because there are up and downs, right? The market is cyclical. The graph will basically go up, down, up, down, up, down, even if it's trending upwards or even downwards. Right. So if you have a small bankroll and you're expected to hold something for that long, most of the time people will panic or get impatient or basically not have enough liquidity to play with. So it's not actually such a good idea for someone with a smaller bankroll to do that. And that's one of the things I've noticed, even since I first came into, to the space, right? Most projects aren't good to hold, right? Even if they are very fundamentally sound, a lot of them aren't good to hold. And if you're a little bit newer, if you have a smaller bankroll, it might be hard for you to identify what might be a good long-term hold. So those are just some tips that I had in mind, right? Like, so medium to long term probably is for someone with a little bit more ETH to play with, and you can afford to basically sit on that ETH and not do anything with it. And let's say you are also someone that's a little bit more busy and you don't have time to grind whitelist or to keep up with the space too much, then perhaps medium to longer term plays might be better for you, right? Because they're a lot less work. All you need to do is just keep track of the updates, what the progress is like, and then because you believe in this team or this project, theoretically it should increase over time in the longer term. Right. So if you're that kind of investor, then sure, you could do medium and longer. But for someone, let's say you do have more time, I wouldn't really recommend it, because the opportunity cost of having that ETH locked up in a certain NFT is quite high, right? So if you can have access to that liquidity that's not locked, you can actually use it to flip your way up, right? So if there's another opportunity that you think that could be a 2x or 3x, or that you want to mint for whitelist, then you have the money to do that. But if you don't have the money, right, and it's locked into the NFT, then you're gonna lose out on those opportunities to make money, essentially, right? So that's pretty much what I had in mind in terms of short to medium to long term type of plays. Does anyone have any questions for now before I continue, I guess? Or if anyone wants me to emphasize on a certain point more.
What do you think of Throwdown now?
Throwdown?
Yeah, assuming you're still holding it from like when you're still cheap.
Yeah. So for DGen plays like Trolltown, which it definitely is, I always lean to the side of caution, right? Because it's a DGen play. By definition, is extremely risky. So I rather take profits early than for it to go to zero. Because pretty much all of them, right? 99.9% of them will go to zero. So I rather take in and secure profit. And for these type of plays, I would have minted multiple. So I would take profits along the way and not get greedy, right? Sure, maybe I think it could go to 1 ETH, right? It's possible. but it's not my style because I know that most of the time that will not happen. So let's say for Troll Town, I would have I will obviously look at the charts to see where I should list, right? But just for an example, let's say I would list, let's say I bought 5, right? I will list to cover costs, and then I will list for like a 2x, and then a 3x, 4x, 5x, whatever, right? So it's kind of like a ladder going up. So that's how I would take profit for a degen play, because as quickly as it pumps, it can also dump very quickly, right? So if you're caught holding the bag, and it goes from 0.5 and then it drops to like, I don't know, 0.05 or whatnot, then you lose out on potential profits. And most of them go to zero within like a week or two anyways. So I rather you not be greedy. And I think a common mistake for degen plays is it hits a new high. It hits like, let's say 0.5, right? And then now it's at 0.3. And then you're like, well, it hit 0.5 earlier. I'm going to wait because this is the dip, right? And then it goes down to 0.1, and then you're like, well, it was 0.3 earlier, so I'm gonna wait, and then it goes to 0. This happens a lot with people, trying to trade degen plays, which is why I say be less greedy for degen plays. I rather you take profits early, and if you think the boat is sinking, you need to get out, right? And it might not be. It might actually just be a dip, right? It's possible, but the point is that you're securing profits, and it never hurts. It's never a bad situation to take profits. So even for Goblin Town, right? Let's say I have minted Goblin Town. I would realistically not have held it to where it is now today, right? Because at the time, it definitely seemed like a complete degen play, right? And what made it moon initially, a lot of it had to do with rumors with Yuga, right? So for that kind of project, like I definitely wouldn't have held, right? I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't have held it to this point now. Like, and once it hit like something like 1 ETH of it, well, I'm taking profit, and I won't look back, and I also won't feel sad that it moved, right? Because that's just the way it is. So I'm usually like fine with it. So this is the same. This applies to Troll Town as well, right? It's pretty high now, or at least last I checked. So depending on how many you have, I would definitely start selling along the way if you haven't already. You shouldn't just keep holding and hoping it becomes the next Goblin Town, because statistically speaking, it's unlikely, highly, highly unlikely. Does that kind of answer your question? Sorry, I rambled a bit.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
It's a good question. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
So,
Hey,
I was
what's
going to
up?
ask, how do you
Sorry.
know when to cut losses?
Yeah. Okay, wait. Sorry. It cut off there, but I heard the when to cut losses. So I'm guessing like how do you determine when to cut losses is the question. It's a good one. Uh, Again, that depends, right? That depends on your risk appetite, how much liquidity you have left to play with, I guess, and the like opportunity cost as well. So I definitely have sold things at losses before, even for projects that I think are probably very, very good medium to longer term holds. I have sold things at losses before. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, right, there's an opportunity cost to holding. An opportunity cost basically is what's the next best alternative to that decision you made. So decision one is to hold the NFT, right? The whole long term. Then second decision is I can sell and then I can mint, let's say, 10 Troll Towns. And I believe Troll Town will 10x, right? Then it does make sense. It does make sense to go and sell at a loss, assuming you need that liquidity. Right? That's why I say if you have bigger liquidity, the way you play things and the way you think should be different. But if you have smaller liquidity and you can do more with that money, I would say you should do it. Right? You definitely should do it. So when you should cut losses, again, that's a tough question for me to answer. Right? It's a case by case basis. So it depends on your liquidity situation and what other opportunities you have down the line, I guess. And I guess if you think that a certain project you're holding is a gone case, or let's say you don't believe them anymore or whatever like that, then yes, you should cut loss ASAP. right? And I think for those type of projects, I'm assuming that volume, like secondary trading volume, is a lot lower already. So it will be hard to sell. That's like what I'm imagining. I'm not sure if you had like a certain scenario in mind or whatnot. Um, but that's I guess I would sell ASAP if I think that the house is burnt, basically. Right? Because I rather not be greedy and try and get money back as opposed to hoping that it goes up again and then it actually goes to zero, which happens a lot. Right? So, don't be greedy and just like eat the loss, I guess, and try and flip your way up elsewhere. Does that kind of make sense? Or I think was it chat that asked that? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. Yeah, you guys can just ask questions, in the chat. Cool. Those are some great questions. Anyone else have any thoughts, or maybe you want to kind of walk through like a certain scenario with me, or ask about a project, then maybe I can kind of share my thoughts. Don't need to be shy. You can just unmute or tag me in general or AMA questions.
Yeah. Wait a second.
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay, so I guess how, for me personally, how I would determine whether something is a good medium or a long-term hold is this, right? So for more medium-term type holds, I I usually have a hypothesis in my mind, right? Like I would be like, okay, is there a catalyst down the line that I think will realistically drive price up, right? Is there going to be an event that will drive price up? So let me use a real life example. Um, Let me see. Okay, let's say Gojira. Okay, so Gojira is a pretty well known project in the space, and the Genesis I don't actually know what the floor is anymore. But let's say it's 15 or 20 ETH. Okay, so the Genesis is only 333. And then they have a baby collection, their Gen 2, that's called Gojira Genesis 2, I think, or something like that. Or Project Gojira 2 or whatnot. And last I checked, the floor was like 2.5 ETH maybe. Um, so for a project like this, that's a good example of something that might fit the bill of a good medium term hold. And by medium term, it's kind of vague, right? Like I would say maybe uh, 3 to 6 months, maybe, or longer term it's like 6 months plus 2 years. And then short term is within 1 to 2 months, I would say. But anyways, for medium term, so for Gojira, the catalyst I had in mind, like if I was gonna invest in it, which I do have two, by the ways. The catalyst I had in mind was basically the merging event that's happening. I'm not entirely sure when, but it should be happening sometime this month or next month. But within the next 2 to 3 months, it should happen. And Project Gojira has been out for a couple months. I don't quite remember exactly when, 2 months maybe. But essentially, the merging event is a catalyst I had in mind. So what merging would do for Project Gojira is basically you need to combine two normal Gojiras, and everything in the collection, essentially most of them are normals, right? So you need to use two of them to merge. And there's only, in total, you can only have 999 of the merged Gojiras, right? So you need two of them, and the max supply of these merged ones is 999. So because I think that, because I know this is happening down the line, my hypothesis is because people want to merge, and not everyone can merge, right? Supply of the original collection will definitely decrease because you have to burn. Um, supply will be burned in order to get the super thing. And there are different types of the super beasts that you can get depending on what you put together, right? So because I think this, right, because supply is probably gonna go down, overall supply, demand should go up for floors, and those that, not everyone can merge, right? So because I think all of these things, and then let's say there's tokenomics gonna be introduced, and then let's say a marketplace is coming. So basically, you can have an idea in your head. It's like, oh, so this certain event I think will actually drive price up, and this will increase demand and supplies will decrease or whatever like that, or that this is a very very bullish piece of news that I think that investors will appreciate and price will go up, or whatnot. So I need to have something like this in mind before I choose to hold something medium to long term. Um, so longer term as well, it's kind of the same idea, but longer term is hard to tell, right? Like, I mean, the space moves so fast, things change all the time. It's essentially impossible to predict whether something is going to go to 10 ETH or not. But there's a good chance, right? You're like, well, I think there's a decent chance. And for me, how I determine that is by basically verifying the team behind the project. Not so much the idea or even the community. Community is very important, don't get me wrong. But I think the most important thing to the longevity and long-term success of a project is how experienced or how good the team might be, right? So I am quite selective with who I decide whether to hold long-term or not. And when I choose to hold something very long-term, I am unfazed by floor price, right? Because floor price inevitably will dip, right? It will 100% go down and up, right? It fluctuates, right? So you need to be okay with price going down, and you won't panic, and it won't affect your quality of life. It won't affect your portfolio that much, and you can afford to hold, right? So if you're this kind of person, then yes, you could be doing longer term hold. So team is the most important thing. Um, so I guess a good example for me is like Moonbirds, right? Moonbirds is something I called extremely early on, even before mint. And I said that the team that they have is a team that can match something like a Gary V, right? So that is a good example of some project or team that I would actually bet on to deliver and perform long term, because we know that they have a proven track record, right? They have done this before. They are serial entrepreneurs. They obviously have good funding, all of that, right? So they will probably exist in a year or two from now, right? So that's a good example. Now, what is a bad example? A good example of something you shouldn't hold, right? On the flip side, let's say Troll Town. Like, do you know anything about their founders, right? Are their founders doxxed? And if they're doxxed, like, have they had a track record before? Like, have they done this before? Have they scaled a business before? Have they gotten a business acquired, right? Or if they're, let's say, promising a Troll Town game, like, do they have game development experience? Have they worked at Riot? Have they worked at Blizzard for 10 years? That kind of stuff, right? No, probably not. Well, to be fair, I haven't done, I haven't done too much research on Troll Town, but I'm gonna assume that's the case, right? That's the case for a lot of projects. So that's a good example of something I wouldn't hold, right? It's very risky to hold. So yeah, so that's a little bit about how I would decide whether something might be a good medium or longer term play. Does that kind of make sense, Rizlan?
Um, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it makes sense. Would be also cool. You have also shared the other projects, this Tiger Bob project, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it's the same. The team behind this is also kind of, there are people also behind this, like people from Moonbirds, right, or from Proof Collective. Yeah, it would be cool. Maybe you can share maybe your screen here in Discord and
Sure.
show some projects, let's say you go to their website or Twitter, etc., as an example, so what you are looking for, so to understand, okay, this project is legit, it could be worth to invest in it.
Sure. Can you guys see my screen?
I can see your screen.
You can? Okay. Cool. Okay, so Tiger Bob is a good example of one that I think is a good medium to long term hold. So I guess let me. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are of Tiger Bomb, but this is another project I called extremely early. I was probably one of the first to call it before it minted. So Tiger Bob, the artist is someone called Gossamer something something. I'm not entirely sure, but essentially she is a Proof Collective artist, and she was the first one announced by Proof Collective also. So because I happened to be a Moonbird holder at the time, like I knew that intel extremely early on, and so I guess this game is a little bit different, right? A lot of the ones I was talking about is for profile picture collections. Tiger Ball, I would say, is more of a fine art collection. It's more art based. It obviously worked as a profile picture as well, but um, I think the type of people that are attracted to this kind of project might be different from the type that are attracted to say Troll Town, right? It's a little bit different crowd. Um, so I think I made a post on Tiger Bob a while ago, a couple days maybe. But anyways, so the floor is what 1.23. Are you? Can you guys see this? Like, is this on OpenSea right now for you?
Yes, for me,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Cool.
For all
Perfect.
you guys
Yeah. Yeah.
also, can you confirm? Oh, yes, two guys confirmed
Yeah.
already.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Yeah. So I made a call a while back saying that personally I was trying to accumulate around 1 ETH, right? 1 ETH or below, and I have, right. So I've been making bids, and usually the floor ones, uh, they are more likely to accept a lowball bid, right? Because I'm assuming if you're going to list at floor or if you're going to undercut the floor, probably you need liquidity, right? So I guess this is a real life example of if you're someone that can't afford to hold something long term, then you probably shouldn't. Or if the opportunity cost of holding is too high, then you also shouldn't be holding, right? But then again, that's good opportunities for people like you and me if you're trying to buy in. Um, so I put like a 0.95 bid that got accepted, and I also put a 1.05 bid that also got accepted a couple days ago, right? So if I wanted to instantly flip it, I could, right? I could just list that floor and make some profit, but that's not why I necessarily bought it. Um, I bought in as I mentioned, right? So first of all, she's a Proof Collective artist, so we know that she is quite well connected. And after doing research, like I also discovered that she has very avid and loyal and devout collectors. So for artists, how you know you've made it is when you're on the radar of rich collectors. And clearly Gossamer is one of those artists that has rich fans, right? So for example, people that are holders of her that you might recognize the name of is like Gremplin. Gremplin is the founder of Cryptotes. Cryptotes is one of the top CCO projects, art-based projects in the space. So he's one of the holders. And then Kevin Rose, which is the founder of Moonbirds, is also a big fan of hers. Ryan Carson, who was the ex-COO of Moonbirds, is also a huge fan of Gossamer, and they're actually very close friends. Um, and after some digging, I realized that Ryan Carson, his 121G fund, is basically think of it as like an NFT fund, right? The purpose of this fund is to invest into NFTs. It will be art NFTs, blue chip NFTs, whatever like that. And they have 14,000 ETH to play with, by the way. And they're going to be deploying this ETH in July, sometime in July. And one of the first, well, there are two projects that are secured that we know they definitely will invest in, right? They have explicitly said this. First one is Moonbirds, so they definitely will buy Moonbirds, right? It will be a mixture of floors and rares, according to their website, right? That's their investment philosophy. So that's what they'll do. And Tiger Bobs. Tiger Bobs is the other one that we know that this huge ass fund is definitely going to invest in, right? Again, a mixture of floors and rares. So my hypothesis in mind, if I wanted to flip, is like, well, because I know this big event's coming, right? I know that 121G is going to come and essentially sweep the floor. Then I know that at least down the line, there's an event that will probably drive price up. And this will also likely bring a lot of exposure and publicity to Tiger Bobs and the artists. And not to mention there are a lot of other things, right? That's just one example. Why I think this is a pretty decent play for myself, right? And you guys feel free to copy if you want. It is because there are multiple catalysts. And even if, let's say, it doesn't drive price up, one of the things I've realized over time is actually a decent investment to invest into artists like this and to buy their so-called Genesis pieces because they tend to reward holders or collectors a lot. I think a good real-life example of this is OSF. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with OSF, but he's a fairly well-known and successful artist in the space. Right. So if you hold one of his pieces called the actually, I could just show you. If you hold one of his main Genesis pieces, I think it's called Red Light District. Okay, so OSF's Red Light District, and clearly floor price is pretty high, right? But the benefit of this piece and the benefit of buying this kind of pieces from reputable artists, from what I've discovered, is they tend to reward collectors and holders a lot. So holders on any of these red light districts, every single month they will get airdropped a piece of art by OSF, right? A piece of art, and that art is it's okay. So OSF editions, right? So it ranges heavily the amount that you can sell it for. But on average, right, this is the lowest I've seen it, by the way, it's 0.64. But it ranges from 0.64 to 2 ETH per month that is airdropped to you for forever, right? By the way, if you hold that red light district, right? So this is a good example where buying this basically produces dividends or cash flow, right? So even though it's a high price tag, if you can get it low enough, you can actually make back the cost pretty easily just by holding it, right? You don't even need to sell it. And this is assuming you don't even sell it. You can just sell it and then make even more money, right? So this is a type of setup I'm thinking of in regards to Tiger Bob. So Tiger Bob, I know for a fact that Gossamer has said Tiger Bobs will be her Genesis collection. So they are essentially like the proof collective of her, right? Like of her ecosystem. So they will get the most benefits down the line. And because I think that she is a very promising artist that clearly is extremely well connected, right? She's very, very well connected in Web3 and in Web2. She has very reputable and wealthy collectors. So as long as she progresses the way she's going, theoretically, all of our art pieces should go up in value. And there are also going to be airdrops for these Tiger Bobs. That's a fact, right? Like I've confirmed it with her. They will definitely be getting bodies, right? So it'll either be an airdrop or free mint for holders. So Tiger Bob bodies, but I think it's coming late fall. So that's a little bit from now. But before then, there's supposedly other airdrops coming for holders as well, right? I think she mentioned something about doing an LGBTQ type of drop for Tiger Bob holders this month, just because it's this month. And I think there's also going to be a generative collection where I think Tiger Bobs will get allocation for. So there are basically quite a few things down the line, in my opinion, that will either give you free money in the form of airdrops, or the price will just appreciate in value because it's fine art, right? And as long as the artist keeps doing what she's doing and she progresses the way she's doing, for a medium to long term hold, I think that this is pretty solid. So I'm up to 3 right now. Tiger Bobs. I bought a rare one yesterday for I think 2.6. But yeah, so this is a good example.
One question.
Sure.
Do you get also passive income or some airdrops if you get Tiger Bob monthly?
Yes, that's the idea. Like so, and for those who don't know, Tiger Bobs is only around 1 week old, right? It's a very young project. But yes, Gossamer has said that we will be getting airdrops. Now, the exact date, I don't know when, but I'm gonna assume we will probably get multiple within the year, right? That's as good as I can do because I don't have exact dates because she doesn't share exact dates. I just know that it's going to be a thing. So yeah, And because I know all of these in mind, that's why I'm like, it seems like a pretty safe store of value. Okay, another example of like of this, right? So T-back is something that you could have bought like a couple of weeks ago. But at its peak, this was worth 4 ETH, by the way, this book, right? It's now worth what, 0.29. And the reason why people were buying this book and I guess all of these other things at the time is because it gives you a whitelist for their generative collection. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with chimpers. Yeah, it's a lot lower now, but it was a lot higher like just a couple weeks ago. But the point being is people price in this kind of thing, right? They price in future airdrops and future whitelist opportunities into the price of whatever gets you that, right? So in this case, the ebook or any of these singular pieces would have gotten you one whitelist spot for chimpers. And at the time, like, you know, there was a lot of demand, a lot of hype and all that. So you could actually have flipped the ebook itself and made a fat profit, right? Because these were averaging 3 to 4 ETH at the time. So if you have bought in earlier, you could have flipped it. And this artist is all the artist behind T-Back and Chimpers is quite well known as well, right? Because they were one of the original artists that worked on Nouns. You know, Nouns DAO, it's a very high floor price. I don't know what it is, 90 to 100 ETH. And they've worked on Artifact, Clonex, all of that, right? So it's pretty stacked. And they have like rich, wealthy collectors that are fans of that as well, right? So this is a good example of what Tiger Bob could be, in my opinion. That's my hypothesis. It might not actually happen. Who knows, right? Price could tank. But because I can afford to make this kind of play, I think it's a pretty decent play. So that's what I'm anticipating with Tiger Bobs, right? So when that kind of information gets publicly known and widely known, where holding a Tiger Bob gets you whitelisted, for I don't know, the 10K generative Bob collection, or an airdrop that's going to come your way. All of these kind of things. Once it is widely known, price usually follows, right? And for something like this with such a low supply, and not in absolute terms, not that many listed, right? Technically, 22.5% listed is high for a normal collection, but in absolute terms, where it's only 225 in the whole collection listed, to me that's fairly low, right? Very easy for price to go up. And you see how many until 2 ETH is only 60, right? It only takes 60 of them to be sold to get to around 2 ETH. And do I think there are catalysts down the line that could, basically get 60 sold? Yes, I do think so, right? So because I have all of these ideas or hypotheses in mind, I think that Tiger Bob is a good buy. But yeah, there is impossible to basically know with 100% certainty, right? But as an investor, you just need to win more than you lose. And this is one of the trades that I've been making recently that I haven't learned. But yeah, so I've been kind of stalking listings like a hawk. And I've gotten many steals compared to most people, right? Most people are buying a lot more expensive than I did, right? On average, it's like 1.3, 1.5, whatnot. But the floor ones I got, like, my average cost was 1 ETH for floors. And I bought the ones that I actually liked. And then there's this one that I bought yesterday that I actually really liked. It's rank 18, so I paid a premium for it. But yeah, so
And
hopefully,
by the way, I think it's also in general a good strategy to make bids.
Yeah.
I tried this also before, and the nice thing is, you just need to transfer via Sushi Swap your ETH and VETs ETH, and the nice thing, you can, let's say you have just one ETH, you can bid on 5, 6, 10 different NFTs with this one ETH, and the first one who will confirm it, you will get them this NFT. So you don't need to have, let's say, 10 ETH if you want to bid on 10 different NFTs for one ETH. So that's a nice thing. You can basically just bid under the floor price as the 10 cheapest NFTs if you just want to get this NFTs cheapest possible to this current price. And some people, they accept, I think, because yes, they just need the liquidity and they don't need to wait until somebody accept the price. They can immediately push a button and have this ETH immediately, and you will get the NFT in your wallet. Also, nice thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, like on my screen, for example, here are all the offers that this floor piece has, right? And most of them are obviously below the asking. And the thing is, it works a lot, right? Because a lot of the times people who list at floor, it's because you need liquidity for one reason or another, right? Whether you've lost faith in the project, you just really need money for medical bills, or I don't know, right? So there are different reasons. Well, these are the people that are most likely to actually accept a lowball bid. And usually bids are, like I would say 20 to 30% below actual floor or whatever price that they listed for, those have a pretty good chance of being accepted. So yeah, it's not a bad idea, especially in a bear market. Bear market, this kind of strategy works very well, right? Because people like get scared or people need money, and then they're more likely to actually accept your WEEF offer. But yeah. So there are also software out there that lets you mass bid and all, but that's a discussion for another day. Yeah, so this is just one example of a project that, in my opinion, that medium to longer term hold, it seems like a good bet to me. Like, I could be wrong though. I have been wrong before, but yeah, that I guess also that's the type of calls I make, right? Like if I'm gonna make a call about a certain project that I think is good, I'll explain the reasoning behind why I think it's good, and then it's up to you to decide whether you agree or disagree, or maybe you have more information than I have or less, right? And then you have to basically determine for yourself. It's like, does this make sense for me? Can I actually afford this? Right? If let's say I only have 2 ETH to play with, and that's all that's my whole portfolio, then perhaps it's not a good idea to invest into Tiger Bombs, right? Even if I personally sound bullish, right? It might not be the right play for you, right? If 1 ETH is like 60% of your portfolio, then probably you shouldn't do it, right? So you need to ask yourself questions whether a certain call or analysis applies to your situation, and a lot of times it might not, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I mean, great questions. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions? No?
Okay, maybe you can show in general how you find this kind of projects early, normally.
Okay, it's hard to show because honestly, it's just being everywhere and a lot. Um, so the top places I find information on projects is literally just being on Twitter and Discord, right? So it's a little bit hard for me to say how to find. It's more so being in the space and being present at the right time, and then you find a project, right? So like on Twitter, literally on Twitter, right, you will find a lot of these earlier projects. Maybe someone you're following actually likes something, or someone that you respect, writes a thread about something, and then that's how I will find things from Twitter. And then for Discord is because I'm in so many groups, and people DM me, founders DM me, that kind of things. So I get information uh, in a lot of places. So there's no really one size fits all where how to find a project. Um, because there's so many projects out there, and most of them are garbage. I think the more important thing is how do you determine whether something is worth your time. That's the more important thing.
So Champ asked and make questions. So on Scene Universe, the Audi project, is this a good hold? Do you know this project?
Yeah, so I know of it. I don't know its specifics. Um, that's a good question. So I guess the same things apply, right? For whether you think it might be a good hold or not. is you need to ask yourself the questions. Like first of all, like Aldi is a big brand, right? So we know that okay, that at least that's a good sign. Then you want to take a look at the. See where's the, yeah. Oh, also one thing to be wary of is when Web2 companies try and come into Web3. A lot of times they butcher it and they don't actually do a good job, and a lot of them don't understand the space very well. So just keep that in mind. This should change over time, right, as people become more educated. But for now, it's still a thing where a lot of them flop.
But except GCC, they make an awesome job.
Yeah, they're an exception. There are exceptions, obviously, but a lot of them are butchering their entry into Web3. So just be mindful of that. Now, whether something is a good long-term hold, I would just ask yourself, like, okay, do I believe in the team that is driving this forward? If yes, then okay, cool. And then, like, what do I think it could realistically get to and why? Right now, it's impossible for you to predict with full certainty where it will go to. Right, it's very hard. Right, like, do I think it will go to 1 ETH? Who knows? Do I think it can go to 10 ETH? I also don't know. Right, like if you ask a board ape when they were holding from 0.5 to let's say 10 ETH, if they told you that they knew that was going to happen, they're lying to you. Right, or if someone said at I don't know 0.5 ETH whether Goblin Town will go to 10 ETH, and they said like it's definitely going to happen, they're also lying to you. There's literally no way that can happen. Right? No way to predict. So if you think that the team here is good, you believe in them, and you've seen the way they work, and you're a fan of it, and then you're like, well, since they're trying to do a certain thing, like let's say create an all-new metaverse or whatever like that, and because they're doing this, I think it will introduce a lot of Web2 folks into the space, and because of this and this, price will probably go up a fair amount. So if you that's why you have to come up with your own hypothesis of whether you think that this could be a long-term hold, and not just hold and hope price goes up. Right, you need to have something in mind of why you think price will go up in the long term. And just because you think it might go up in the long term doesn't necessarily mean you should hold. Right, because if there's something else that you can be buying in with the same ETH that you think will make you more money, then you should do that. Right, so it's a little bit hard for me to answer this question. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so when you think you should take profits, again, that's also up to your situation, right? Like if you don't need this money and you're willing to hold, or you just enjoy being part of this community or owning this NFT, then you can hold, right? But if you need this money, or if it's a fair amount of your portfolio, then perhaps you should just sell. And then when to take profit, it depends, right? Ideally, when there's a bullish piece of news that gets dropped, and while it's pumping, that's when I would usually sell. But if you don't know of any catalyst of news coming down the line, then perhaps you should just sell even when the floor isn't the best per se, right? And of course, you have to be fine with it. Let's say hypothetically running after you sell. This sort of thing happens all the time, right? It's kind of hard to predict ahead of time. So yeah, you should just ask yourself those questions, those type of questions.
Yeah, I think the problem is what I see for me is as soon as it pumps, you give also a lot more value to this NFT, and you are also afraid a little bit to sell it because you think it will pump even more. But probably after the pump, the dump will always come. So smart people, they really sell, and they are okay to take these profits and not afraid if they missed out because it goes more up. It doesn't matter because profits are always profits. And in general, trader with this mentality, this kind of trader will succeed, not just with NFT trading, generalist trading, also stocks, crypto, doesn't matter. That's important.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's why it is actually very true, right? You really want to sell the news, but that's the thing. Most people don't sell the news; they hold the news, right? That's a big problem that I see a lot. Like I myself have done this before as well, right? Where it's like, wow, that's such a bullish piece of news. I'm gonna hold, but most of the times, like a very big pump when it goes parabolic, it will also dump, right? Like pretty shortly after, whether it's like within the hour, or a couple hours, or a day, right? Like it will most likely dump. And you can actually trade that chart, right? Like after the dump, if you think it can bump again, then you can buy it as well. But yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to sell into the pump, right? And it's nearly impossible. Actually, it's literally impossible to time the literal top, right? So let's say like, okay, hypothetically, this chart isn't very pretty, but let's say this is a one line straight up. Okay, let's just assume this is one line straight up. I would probably have taken profit around like here, right, or even here. It's unlikely that I will wait it all the way to 0.45, and that's fine by me, right? Like if I sell even at, let's say, 0.225, like I won't blink an eye because I know that I made a bunch of profit, right? Even if it moves to 1 ETH, I'm also fine with that. And people have that kind of FOMO where it's like, oh, but I could have made more money if I had just held a little longer. And then they end up holding too long, right? And then it crashes. Like a lot of times it crashes again. Then you lose out on profits in general, right? So if you're disciplined and you take profit, even if it's earlier, if you keep doing this and you're consistent about it, you can really grow your portfolio, right? You can consistently actually do it, as opposed to gambling and hoping everything moves to 1 ETH or whatnot, and then you end up holding the bag, and then like volume dies, and you can't really flip it very well.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Do we have any one of you guys some questions regarding all this? Because I like also to explain some more stuff regarding our project, and then I think this was it because.
So okay, I guess let me just answer the last question. Someone asked about FTC. What do I think about it? To me, it's just a degen play. Like I don't particularly care if the founder is Cybo or if it's being showed by Shen or whatnot. It is still a very degen play to me, right? And assuming you got to mint it, you're in the money, right? No matter where you sell, even if you sold the literal bottom, wherever that might be, like I don't know, like 0.214, you still make money. So yeah, I guess it depends on where you bought in at. But FTC, in my opinion, isn't something that I would personally hold. I categorize it as a degen project, and who knows, it might not be, right? It is possible it's not, but you have to be okay, right? Like if mentally it will take a huge toll on you to sell early and it does moon and pull a Goblin Town, then I guess for your own sake or sanity or whatever I'm going to call it, then you can choose to hold it, right? But in terms of if you want to be a consistent trader and actually make profits in the long run, and on average, I would say like be less greedy, right? Secure profits early, and if it does moon, be fine with it and move on, right? It's not like that's the last opportunity you're gonna get to make money. Right? There's so many opportunities. So yeah, don't be too emotional about it. Just move on, I guess. Cool, yeah. So I guess that's it for me for now.
Okay.
I'll just let Little take over.
Thanks a lot, Tyler. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you guys like this. So, oh wait, we have another question. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So, let me. Can you stop sharing, Tyler, so I can share also the screen? Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, guys. So, let me explain a little bit our plan. So I will keep going with this AMAs. I will also over time get different different people in. So different analytics who making this professional like Tyler. I plan also to get in some guy who coached me also personally regarding trading, crypto trading. He's also very professional. He have even worked for banks as a trader, as a professional trader, and is also a speaker. So very serious guy, and he is not so in the NFTs. He's more in general in trading and crypto, because you need to understand, if you want to trade something, it doesn't matter, NFTs, crypto, stocks, whatever. You need to understand that trading is a game of psychology. All what you see in charts it's just a mass psychology of people, and you see what kind of values they give this product, what you see in the charts. And if you're starting to understand this, you will also become a better trader in NFT. So it's very important, in my opinion, to understand this. And in general, I will try the next weeks and months to give you in this group as much value as possible, right? And because of course I plan my project, and my plan is of course before I even mentioned an NFT or my project and all this stuff, you know, I want you guys to give value. I want slowly to build a community organically first, who educate themselves, who help themselves, and we get educated together. It's also interesting for me to see this kind of group calls from Thailand, and hopefully soon from other analytics, to just become better in this game. Doesn't matter what kind of market situation, bullish market, bearish market, you know, prices going always up and down. And if you understand this game, you will be able always to make money. And that's the thing about this. That's the thing behind my project, and in general also, not only making money, but also succeed in life and be happy in life, right? This is also the kind behind this, because we want all make money, because in reality we all want just to enjoy our life and be happy, and that's what counts at the end of the day. And that's why I do this also, because I like this NFT space. So I will be really appreciate if you keep joining this AMAs, right? Right now we are around 10 people. I'm really happy for this. And as soon I see that a kind of community forms, a small community, I will starting also to make really big marketing and get also people in here. So we will really grow. And I will also give the first OG roles. So to people who joining the AMAs, and with an OG role, you will have at least 1 free mint and 1 whitelist. And the 10 best people will support me in this project the most. Maybe they become admins, etc. They will get even 2 free mints. So the goal is to educate ourselves, give you guys value, and creating a small DAO even before the mint starts, right? Because every OG will automatically participate in this card of, I would say, project, business, etc. Because every OG will get also a free mint, right? So you basically will participate in this kind of stuff. And that's why I do this also. I invest in your guys, you know, Tyler is also not here for free. So it is all my investment, or also the investment from my investor, right? But I invest literally in you guys, because the real value behind the projects are the people in this, right? And that's why I'm doing this. What I want also to say, let me share my screen. Very important video. Oh no, this is my video. Okay, not video. Hold our screen. Screens. So you see Discord, right? Can anybody confirm?
Yes, can see.
Okay, great. Because we're sharing. First of all, so I will post every time in an announcement, of course, the AMA. If you click on interested, then you can then click on join as soon as it starts, and will immediately land on this channel, right? Very important. So you can see here 2 different calls, Ruslan calls, Tyler calls. On Tyler calls, you will see here always Tyler calls. He had a ping called Tyler calls, right? If you go here, choose roles, you can choose between roles, Tyler calls and Ruslan calls, which are my calls, right? You can choose both. In the beginning, me and Tyler, we will anyway always write down also the everyone tweet, so everyone can notice this, because we're still a very small group here. So everyone will be notified, right? But after a time, it will become bigger. We want that people can choose what kind of calls they want, and I will get also different analytics. So they will get also their own calls, channels, etc., etc. We will get also crypto calls, and also I will share some law of attraction calls. So I'm strong believer in mindset game, etc., etc. I've already write you some things down. You can check this. It's very powerful in my opinion, and I will also share some YouTube videos from very successful people. Also, one guy in the crypto space who talks a lot about law of attraction. This is really mind-blowing. This is a guy, he's a multimillionaire right now. He worked 3 years ago in a grocery store and lives now in Dubai, and he has more money than he will need in the next 10 lives. All right, and just because his mindset, and this is really mind-blowing. I will also post this, so check this all out. And also, I would really appreciate, that's very important, if you first of all support me on YouTube, right? So I will make here calls in my Ruslan calls channel, and normally I will share also different calls from other alpha groups, because I'm in a lot of different closed alpha groups, but I will also always share some YouTube stuff. And basically what I will do also, I discussed this with Tyler, his calls, for example, I will also analyze his calls and make for some strong calls a YouTube video, right? Why I think he's right, etc., etc. So if you really interested in some of them calls, you may see also YouTube video from me where I go more, maybe a little bit deeper in the video and tell my thoughts about this call, right? And even if you don't like to watch this video, if you want to support me and of course this project, because the more successful the YouTube my YouTube channel will be, the more influence I will get, and the more I can use this to get people in, right, to create the hype, and you will also benefit from it. So even if you don't want to watch it, but you want to support me, just go to the video, click on it, make a like, leave a comment, thanks for the video, blah blah, and this helps me with the algorithm. So this will be really awesome. So I will always appreciate every kind of support, and even if you join this AMA, you are already a supporter. Let me make again a screen from all you guys who support this, and all you guys will already get who are here will already get an OG role, right? So thanks a lot for joining this AMA. If you have questions, you can ask me now. If not, I would say we can quit from now, and yeah, I will keep
Recorded, right? First line?
Yeah. Now today I have recorded it, thanks God, and I hope it working well. I have tested like crazy, and it was not working. It was horrible, but now it's recorded. So yeah, and I will make also a YouTube video about this AMA and share this on YouTube, and then share this in my Alpha Call channel. And yeah, will be great to get your support. Any questions so far? Okay then.
Nothing else.
Okay.
Thank you for hosting.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys, to joining in. Wish you all the best, and yeah, see you next time. Okay.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.